Good morning. My name is Jill Thompson, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Welcome to those of you who are here with us in person at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, Virginia. We extend a special welcome if you are joining us for the first time. Please silence your cell phones at this time. And we also say welcome to those of you who are joining us on YouTube. And if you are, and you have joys and concerns you'd like to share, please type them in the chat in the next 10 to 15 minutes so we can include them in the service. Our minister today is the Reverend Walter LaFleur. However, that's him. I just kept reading. and we hope you enjoy today's service. Thank you. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here.
We got a treat for you this morning. As we begin our annual pledge campaign, we invited how do we refer to you? Our most gentlemanly of gentlemen. Please come forward.
There again. The old generosity campaign is firing up. But before I get started, I do want to know who's responsible for all those interesting public service announcements that we had on the screen. Who did that? Oh. Whoa, Betsy. This is great. And Jesse.
It was cooperative.
Thank you very much. This is really nice. I enjoyed all the information that you had up there. Mr. Gincam gives you a whoop.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
My name's Walker Hartman. I'm co-chairman of the Generosity Campaign, along with fellow board member Matthew Livingston. It is Generosity Campaign, but the lingo is GenCam. So just get used to that, and it'll be a lot easier on your tongue. For those of you that aren't familiar with UU procedures, we operate on a fiscal year basis beginning July 1. And so consequently, this spring, we are in our fund drive for fiscal year 22-23. And the theme this year is going to be emergence. And we have a robust emergence this year at $250K as our goal. Last year, you'll recall we had planting seeds as our theme. Next year, we will be growing. The year after, we will be harvesting. Okay. Last year, with planting the seeds, we celebrated the arrival of Rev. Walter and the appointment of Jesse McEwen as our director of Lifespan Faith Development, and doing an excellent job as well. Here too. Yes. Everybody gets a little touch. You know how it is. Some of the highlights for this year I do want to share with you. First of all, whenever you make your pledge, you will be receiving a seed pot to take home. The idea is for you to nurture that with water and sun and watch it, you're not going to believe this, emerge. Whoa! Who knew? I think it'll be a very powerful symbol for all of us to share in unity as we go forward in this pledge drive. As far as the generosity campaign materials go, they are all online as we speak. So you can go to uuroanoke.org, and there you'll find information on infographics that Matthew has developed that look at our giving patterns over the last 10 years. Very interesting, as well as quartile analysis of this present year's giving patterns. We're complementing that then with information from the UUA called their Fair Share Giving Guidelines. These guidelines compare disposable income levels with 4 different levels of commitment to the church. So you can look at this guide, you can find where you are on your pledge and see whether or not there is room for development and improvement in those areas. Rev. Walter is very fond of reminding us that we want to strive for 3 to 5. That's all I'm going to say about that. And you'll also find an electronic pledge form to go ahead and acknowledge your intention of pledging for next year. And it's all right there on the website for you. Anybody that needs a hard copy of this information, just get in touch with the church office. Sam will be glad to send out a full packet with all the paper for you. Lastly, we will also have Zoom meetings coming up for those that aren't able to get to church or that prefer that environment. And we will be discussing the pledge along with some other things as well. Lastly, we'll also have weekly interviews with the staff. We're working on some of the technical challenges of that. Good news is we have new equipment. Bad news is it doesn't like Apple. So we got to figure that out. But we're working on it. We're working on it. And so we will have some interviews, hopefully, with the staff that can share with you some of their hopes and dreams for this coming year. Again, the campaign will end Sunday, May 1. And it is my hope that we will be maskless at that time, and so we can have refreshments and celebrate the end of a successful campaign. Now, thank you so very much for your time. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm going to ring the bell 7 times in honor of our Unitarian Universalist 7 principles. And I share the words with you of our congregational covenant. We commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communication as we work in community to explore spiritual growth and to be a force for good in the world. Our opening words this morning come from our hymnal. They're the words of Kathleen McTeague. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together. We light our chalice with words from William Schultz. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life. Good morning. I'm Jessie. I am the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here at UUCR, and I have a story for you this morning about a very special person. On Christmas Eve, 1821, a little boy named David welcomed his little sister Clarissa into the world. And David was a little bit older than Clarissa, and he loved her so much. He called her Clara, and they spent all day playing together from the time she was very little. As she grew up, he helped her learn to walk. He teased her a little bit every now and then because she was so very, very shy. But one day when she had reached 10 years old, David fell down and hit his head. And it was not good. He was bleeding, and Clara was so scared. But the doctors came and they put David in bed, and Clara said, "I want to help." And they said, "Oh, you're too little to help. You know what? Take this to your mom." And they gave her pieces of paper or bandages or something. "Take this to your mom. That's what you can do." She said, "No, I want to help David." And the day got longer and longer. And she kept going back in there and asking the doctors, "How can I help David?" And they said, "You can't do anything. You're too little. There's nothing you can do. You're only 10 years old." And then they came out of the room and said, "We've done everything we can do for David. It's up to David now." But you know what Clara said? "It's up to me too." So Clara went in there and she held David's hand. If David needed medication, she measured it twice to make sure he got the right amount of medicine. And slowly, after the doctor said there was nothing they could do, he started to get better. And Clara stayed by his side. She read him books. She sang him songs. And David started to talk to her. And they spent all day in that room. She took care of him. She bathed his forehead. She even helped him take big baths. And that's where Clara learned that she could take care of people. And David said, "You know, if it wasn't for you, Clara, I might not have gotten better." So David made a full recovery. And next thing you know, by the time Clara was 11, they were going to school together. They were playing games outside. And Clara did. She took care of her brother. And you know what else she did? She took care of soldiers in the Civil War. Her name was Clara Barton. Who's heard of Clara Barton? A lot of us know her as a very famous nurse, and she also founded the American Red Cross with the International Committee for the Red Cross. And all it took was one day when Clara was very little for her to decide that she could do when others said she couldn't. Now think about it. What's something that you can do when others say you can't? If you are in RE age group, which is kindergarten to 5th grade, we're going to head out that door if any of you guys are here, and we are going to talk a little bit more about Clara Barton, and we're going to see what goes in a Red Cross first aid kit and do a little first aid practice.
Our reading for today was from Faith Without Reason by Paul Razor. Liberal theology is not for the faint of heart. It points us in a general direction without telling us the specific destination. It refuses to make our commitments for us, but holds us accountable for the commitments we make. The liberal religious tradition is an invitation, not a mandate. It invites us to live with ambiguity without giving in to facile compromise, to engage in dialogue without trying to control the conversation, to be open to change without accepting change too casually, to take commitments seriously but not blindly, and to be engaged in the culture, without succumbing to the culture's values. Liberal religion calls us to strength without rigidity, conviction without ideology, openness without laziness. It asks us to pay attention. It is an eyes wide open faith, a faith without certainty. This is important work, but none of us can do this work alone. As much as we need constructive self-examination and critical dialogue, we need each other. We may never come to think alike or to act alike. I hope not. But by participating in each other's faith journeys, by reaching out to each other and sharing in each other's struggles to name and claim our theologies, we can strengthen our public prophetic voice and deepen our sense of community and our commitment to a shared faith tradition. May it be so.
I'm convinced the universe has a sense of humor. And I have a strong belief that it, the universe, talks to us, sends us messages, may even have a plan that includes all of us. Some call it fate. Some call it the interconnected web of all existence. Some call it a gift. I don't know how your board chose March 20th as the date of the pledge campaign kickoff. And it wasn't until I sat down to begin to work on my sermon for this morning that I realized that the date of the kickoff was the date the calendar names as the first day of spring. I do know, however, that the theme for this year's campaign was intended to build on the foundation that was laid last year. The year of planting seeds has led to a year of expected emergence, new growth. I'm reminded of the hymn in our teal hymnal called Singing the Journey, hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. Says, building a new way, feeling stronger every day, building a new way. The second verse says, we're working to be free of hate, greed, and jealousy. Then comes, we can feed our every need. Start with love. That's the seed. we can feed our every need. I do so miss singing in church. Yeah, make a difference. Singing is an active joint venture. Singing communicates on a different level than words alone. It affects us differently. It takes us to a place within ourselves. It's a whole body experience, like life itself. When we sometimes sing off key or forget words, others can help pull us along. That's the nature of community, folks. That's the nature of nature itself. Nature is not monolithic. It exists because of its diversity. Nature is multifaceted, yet of a whole. Nature needs all of its parts to survive, certainly true to thrive. From the mosses to the mighty oak, the droplets of dew to the depths of the ocean, the word that describes the world we live in is interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. Last year, you all planted the seeds of a developmental ministry. The year, or maybe even years before, you tilled the ground by jointly choosing the path of developmental ministry. And for those of you who don't know, developmental ministry is a determined set of years focused on a particular set of developmental goals, separate from a called minister that's here forever. And the lived experience of this church's life led to an awareness and commitment to tilling the soil for future growth. And I'm glad you did. And I hope you too are glad you did. I found here a warm, welcoming, and fertile environment, bright and committed people, along with some dust and dirt in the dark corners, in need of attention. A need for some pruning, some weeding and fertilizing, for new and enhanced growth. Hate to tell you folks, but you ain't perfect yet. Not yet. There needs to be attention to stunted and emergent growth. One of the things that surprised me since I've been here is the high degree of corporate feel to much of the congregation's official documentation, sense of corporateness. One of the things I worked on during my first year was to help review and revise the Personnel Policies Manual. For context, there was a time in my life that I was a human resource manager in a major high-tech corporation with responsibility for a number of work groups totaling approximately 400 people. Your personnel policies would have been much more appropriate for that work group, a population of that size, not for 4 people that you pay to work with you and for you. One of your policies required hourly employee to fill out a timesheet each week, and if I remember correctly, to obtain the supervisor's signature. Now, if there were a bunch of hourly employees doing different types of work, maybe even in different locations, that might make sense. But for one admin with a high level of responsibility? I said, nah, I'm not doing that. It felt to me it would be demeaning. And I knew full well that most people working in nonprofits, in churches, work more hours than they're paid for. We've since streamlined the personnel policy significantly. I was hired by your board. They asked me to sign on to 5 or 6 developmental goals and objectives for the first year. The board, in addition, had a handful of goals and objectives for themselves. While we did good work, only a small number were truly engaged. I wasn't surprised, as a monumental amount of time and effort would be required to do the work they had set out for themselves in 1 year. It seemed to me a setup for feeling disappointed at the end of the year, which made little sense to me. This past fall, the board gathered for a weekend retreat. The primary focus was getting to know each other better as individuals and building a sense of ourselves as a team. We shared what was important to us about this faith we claim. We shared our connection with this congregation as our faith community. We ate together. We had downtime together. We went on a boat ride together, and we made music, all in service of creating a board covenant that reflected each of us and us as a we. We spent time focused primarily on relationship. We've significantly, in the time from then to now, streamlined our goals and objectives. Board goals include creating a strategic plan. 2, conducting a bylaw policy manual review. 3rd, develop a capital plan to address the needs of this building. Additional goals and objectives combined, the minister and the board, to build community around a sense of mission and to transform how we interact with each other as a community, as a congregation. As such, these goals and objectives are infinitely more achievable, even if they're not fully accomplished by the time June comes up on the calendar. Progress will be of value. Progress will make a difference. They'll impact the way we do business as a congregation. They'll impact our relationship with one another, with the congregation as a whole, and with the congregation's mission and vision. Our work together as a congregation should always be grounded in manifesting those 7 principles we saw, not just believing in their meaning, living into and out of our liberal religious orientation, all while being driven by our congregational vision, tethered to our mission. Yet, we remain cognizant that there is a downside to this thing we call our liberal religious orientation. Our theological tradition is one that might be called contrariness. Our forebears concluded by rational thought that the Father and the Son could not be one and the same. Therefore, God, the Trinity, was to be rejected, not based on faith, but based on rational thought. They did not reject the concept of God, but rather the Trinity. They placed power of thought above power, above the rightness of dogma. They endured the social scorn for such beliefs. Some were even buoyed by a sense of superiority in their belief system. In other words, Unitarians have a long and deep connection to individualism, valuing the thinking mind over dogma, over conformity, over tradition, over feeling and emotion. Truth be told, such a fundamental orientation is not particularly conducive to what might be called groupthink, to following, to the greater good. They place a high value on individualism, individual thought, individual choice of behavior, with both an upside and downside implications. We as a denomination pay too much attention, are too often driven by our attention and devotion to individualism. Much too little attention to community, collaboration, to following. Look at and think about the way our denomination is structured. Many folks even refuse to use the word denomination. Each and every congregation is independent. We're an association of congregations. The Unitarian Universalist Association has zero authority over any group that calls themselves a church, a fellowship, a congregation, or otherwise associate themselves with Unitarian Universalism. Zero authority over those communities. Of them set their own rules, calls their own minister if they choose to have a minister. Such a dynamic, by necessity, flows into the culture, into the experience and operation of our congregations by whatever name. We attract independently minded people. One of our principles states we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I question that statement as a lived experience. I wonder if those of you who are perhaps the quiet folks here who believe in God, do you have a sense that we support an independent search for truth and meaning? Many UU congregations do not value the notion of God, and it impacts the way we interact with one another. And I believe dearly that it inhibits our ability to support one another in individual search for truth and meaning. I have what I've called a traveling sermon. It's a sermon I've delivered to close to maybe a dozen congregations over a number of years now. If we are to survive as a denomination, I argue, we must more fully tether ourselves to the tenets of universalism and de-emphasize a focus on Unitarianism, which is fundamentally a definition of God. We, as a denomination, we as congregations, as individuals, must place our focus on the notion that all can be saved, the fundamental principle in universalism. We must place our focus on we, on each other, as traveling companions, all, each worthy of our care and concern. That's my message to you as your minister. That's my message to you as a developmental minister. Focus on each other. Focus on us with capital letters. Virtually every one of you within hearing distance of my voice recognize and maybe even remember the trademark of the Three Musketeers. There it is. Say it again. There you go. One for all, and all for one. In religious terms, the words of our founding fathers, the words of Francis David, 1500s Transylvania, said, "We need not think alike to love alike." 1500s Unitarianism. We need not think alike to love alike. So as we enter this time of the pledge campaign, pledge with your hearts and with your mind, not just with your financial support. Commit to the notion of one for all and all for one. Let that notion, that admonition permeate all that we do during this coming year in words and in deeds. Let it be foundational to who we are as a faith community. To help operationalize that notion, we ask each of you to pledge 3 to 5% of your disposable income. Disposable income means the funds that are available after the rent's paid, after the expenses of everyday life are accounted for, and after you've set aside a little bit for savings. We ask that you pledge to this congregation 3 to 5% of the funds that are available to you thereafter. It means, when we talk about 3 to 5%, it means one person is no more valuable than another, no more committed, no more important than another. You might say, one for all. The building on that concept, if you have the resources, pledge, for those of you with extra resources, pledge a bit more to help cover for those who have little or no disposable income. One for all. While our pledge campaign is focused on finances, the health of this congregation depends on also the time of its people, not just its treasures. We need people to commit their time as well as their treasures, for the vitality of this wonderful communion of people called a congregation, called a church. And the commitment of time is not a substitute for the commitment of treasures. And the commitment of treasures is not a substitute for the commitment of time. It's about both and. Both and. So I bid you, go in peace. Search your hearts and your minds. Gain clarity about the value of this place, of this belief system we espouse, the community that is provided here, the community you'd like to help build and reinforce and fertilize for the future. The love and support that is available to you here. I'd like to take a moment and ask you to look at one another. Turn your heads, take in your neighbor, give and receive a smile of appreciation, a smile of recognition, a smile of belonging. For this, for that is what community is. Let us do community well. Community built not only on finances, not only on a belief system, not only on participation, but it's the mix of all, like the larger environment, dependent upon the all. Amen and Ashe. Did you recognize that? Thank you. It's in the teal hymnal. We're building a new way. There's a time and a place for everything. Now is the time, and this is the place for this congregation, home to many wonderful people with high expectations of ourselves. We, a community in need of financial support and assistance. So we take up an offering each Sunday. The offering will gratefully be received. Thank you. All for one, to fund this important community, this congregation called the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. Blessed be, and thank you.
Good morning. I'm Linda Wood, representing the Caring Committee today. And our committee covenants to do a lot of things, hopefully for the church. But one of the main things we do is collect and record joys and concerns of things that are going on in our community. And if you have something that you'd like to share with all of us, you can send that message to Sally Garber, who is the chairman of the Caring Committee, or you can let Sam know in the church office, or you can let Reverend Walter or anybody on the Caring Committee know. Or you can write it down when you come in the morning on the book, which is on Down the Altar, the Lifelines book, which is also kept by the name tags during the week. So let us enter into this time of thoughtfulness. And the main thing we have today is a joy. And that is that Chris Yates is very happy to announce the birth of a granddaughter. Charlotte Claire Baum was born on March the 1st to Chris's daughter Sarah and her son Jason, her husband Jason, in Chatsworth, Georgia. They live in Chatsworth, Georgia. That's all that we have to share verbally, but we all carry things in our heart. We have joys that we're excited about. We have things that we're worried about. We worry about ourselves and our family and our friends. And certainly right now we're all worrying about the world and things that are going on. So Reverend Walter and I are going to light a candle to represent those inner thoughts and feelings and concerns and joys. May our prayers be answered and our hearts be restored.
Join me in a time of prayer and meditation. We pray for forgiveness this morning, for we are only human, frayed and imperfect beings, attempting to live our lives as best we can, knowing we will never reach perfection, yet striving to more often be our better selves. May we have patience. May we be less judgmental of ourselves, and importantly, of each other. May we know we are blessed by grace, even during times of darkness in our personal demeanor, darkness in our thoughts, darkness in those we may encounter, darkness in the world in which we all live. May we offer thanksgiving. May we offer forgiveness. May we offer hope, all needed to be purveyors of love and acceptance. Acceptance of what is as it is, not needing things or people to change before we open our hearts with the warmth of welcome. May we remember this world is filled with mere mortals, imperfect, each and every one. Each are told worthy of being saved. And may it begin with me. May it begin with you. May it begin with who we strive to be. For the world needs who we are, who we're striving to become. The world needs more of what this congregation has to offer. When we get about that work, this joyful work of becoming, and may no one be left behind. Amen.
Whoa. Well, yeah, happy equinox. My name is Jean Larson. I'm a member of your board. And, I just, as one of the people who sometimes attends Sunday mornings on what I call YouTube Tube, I want to give special thanks to James Rosar and Betsy Biesenbach and the camera folks and those who support them, because it makes such a difference. Yeah. So once a month, your board meets and we try to fill you in. We heard at our meeting last Monday from Walker Hartman and Matt Livingston about all their good work. You've heard about it. You're going to hear more. And I just have to say, really, those graphs that are available with that information are well worth checking out. They're quite interesting. Even a poet would love them. and money matters. For now, on behalf of the board, I want to thank both Matt and Walker. They are two smart, hardworking, and very dapper gentlemen. Also, we owe some big thanks to our facilities committee. Sometimes they're a committee, sometimes they're a team. Some of the recent hands-on work they have been doing in this really cool building we have include fixes to the drinking fountain, to the leaking sink in the upstairs bathroom, including replacement of the vanity and fixtures, yes. And there was a roof leak over and around the stage, and that has now been taken care of. That is good. And they've got a list they're working on of other upgrades and repairs, looking at money, prioritizing. And now that winter is just about gone, we're able to get back to the preparations for the accessibility ramp to the front door. So there is hope on that front, perhaps next month. And that means, as you rejoice over this good work, stay alert for calls to work parties. There will certainly be one tackling paint, plaster, and ceiling damage. If you haven't seen it, count your blessings, but look around. There are non-functioning electrical outlets and switches. And also there's plan that you don't have to be an electrician to plop down some pavers to make a walkway that will kind of coordinate with the accessibility ramp and create a bit of a path over to the sidewalk on Laburnum Avenue there. Our VP Finance, Gary Mason, has also let us know that Verizon and T-Mobile, who rent space up in our steeple, may be adding new antennas as part of an upgrade in the whole 5G thing. So UUCR will be working with a local law firm to renegotiate the terms of their leases. The board is also working on complex policies to manage our non-endowment funds a little better. The endowment committee is doing great. And also to provide more flexibility so that we can respond quickly to emergencies or other kind of timely things that pop up. Bob Egbert and Susie Newton have been doing great good work on Sunday mornings as safety monitors, but we do need a few more folks. So if you think you might be able to help out with that, if you're curious, talk to Bob Egbert. His hands up, he's over there, you can find him. Find out more. The committee hopes one day to do in-person training on things like CPR, but not under the present pandemic conditions. So part of the special work that we've been doing with Rev. Walter as our developmental minister, our president-elect Catherine Hoffman shared with the board a kind of an assessment she did, building on some work that our president, Erica Joyner, had put together a list and working on our goals. You just heard a lot about that, and better said than I can. But I will admit that at our meeting Monday, with a little help, we kind of left feeling pretty good about how much we've done, which is good because there's still so much we have left to do on a number of fronts. And finally, just a reminder, you know, when I started coming here, the first few years, I stayed on the fringes, and I was just much too busy to read the weekly newsletter. Well, that was really dumb. So I want to say when I started reading it, I learned all this stuff and I understood things. So I recommend, and you might want to take advantage from the fact that I think it'll be May when it's up and running, but we are making that switch that you've read about in the weekly newsletter to a monthly newsletter with weekly updates. And I think that will actually make it more efficient. It does, if you're someone who sends in reports, it does mean you'll have to pay attention to when each month you need to get certain items into our administrator, Samantha Wills. And I think that's it. But a final underline for the generosity campaign. I get so much here in terms of comfort, in terms of wisdom, with that delicious little pinch of discomfort that is essential to learning. I get companionship and I get real joy. And that means volunteering and it means making a pledge. So hope you'll do that. Thanks.
I have two announcements to read to you. The first is we are collecting unexpired canned food for the Easter can hunt. Immediately following our Easter service, children will hunt for canned goods that will be donated after they have been gathered. Donations can be left in the bin outside under the stairs behind the back door of the church. And secondly, this is regarding the special collection for the Roanoke chapter of the NAACP that happened last Sunday. We are still accepting donations for the Roanoke chapter. The mission of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, is to secure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and ensure the health and well-being of all persons. The Roanoke branch works locally to achieve this mission while also successfully developing a new generation of civil rights and community leaders. Checks should include NAACP in the memo line, and online donations can be made through Vanco on our website with the NAACP box marked. Thank you.
It's mic number one. You will recognize this piece, Spring by Vivaldi, but you will hear the birds chirping and the brooks babbling and a thunderstorm, and then the birds come back out.
It is good that we've come together. It is good that we are a community. It is good that we feed one another. Take that goodness into the world and shine. Go into your week in peace.